Turning left.
These cars see us.
Fame, fortune, and adulation come with a price. For some celebrities, that price was the ultimate one, their lives. The public's fascination with celebrity deaths, particularly those involving vehicles, reveals our complex relationship with fame itself.
Fast and Furious actor Paul Walker died from a combination of traumatic injuries and burns. That's the finding of the LA coroner. Walker died Saturday when the Porsche he was riding in crashed and burst into flame.
We elevate stars to godlike status, yet find a strange comfort when tragedy proves they were mortals after all. These high-profile accidents don't just end lives, they freeze-frame legacies, transforming rising stars into eternal icons and establish legends into tragic figures. From the winding roads of California to the tunnels of Paris, these celebrity crashes have become cultural touchstones, forever altering not just entertainment history, but also safety regulations and our collective consciousness.
Do you have any special advice for the young people who drive?
Take it easy driving. The life you might save might be mine.
The date was September 30th, 1955, and America was about to lose its first true teenage idol. James Dean, just 24 years old, and with only 3 major films to his name, was behind the wheel of his new Porsche 550 Spider, a sleek silver race car he'd nicknamed Little Bastard. The irony of this nickname would later send chills down the spines of his fans. Dean was heading to a racing event in Salinas, California, with his mechanic Rolf Wütherich beside him. He'd recently wrapped filming on Giant, and though Warner Brothers had tried to prevent him from racing during production, Dean was finally free to indulge his passion for speed. Earlier that day, he had received a speeding ticket. It wouldn't be his last reckless act. As twilight approached on that fateful evening, Dean's Porsche collided with a Ford Tudor sedan at the intersection of California State Route 46 and 41. The other driver, 23-year-old Donald Turnipseed, had turned across the highway, apparently not seeing the low-slung sports car approaching at speed. The impact was catastrophic, crumpling Dean's vehicle and causing fatal injuries. His mechanic survived, but Dean's neck was broken and he was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. What followed was unprecedented, a wave of grief that swept across America's youth. Dean had appeared in only one released film at the time of his death, East of Eden. Rebel Without a Cause, the movie that would cement his legend, was released posthumously. In death, Dean achieved what few achieve in life: immortality. The wreckage of Little Bastard took on an almost mythical status, with legends of a curse following the car's parts as they were sold off. Dean's death crystallized the live fast, die young ethos that would later claim so many other celebrities. His crash marked the first time America collectively mourned a young star lost to speed, but it certainly wouldn't be the last. Princess Diana, the people's princess.
Dr. Frederick Maillet saw smoke, then the mangled Mercedes as he drove into the Pont de Alma tunnel that August night in 1997. He arrived just seconds after the crash and counted 4 victims. Only 1 man and a woman were still alive.
August 31st, 1997 started as a romantic getaway in Paris for Princess Diana and her companion Dodi Fayed. It ended as a date forever etched in global consciousness, the night the People's Princess was hounded to her death. After dining at the Ritz Hotel, Diana and Dodi attempted to evade the relentless paparazzi that had pursued them throughout their relationship. Their Mercedes S280, driven by Henri Paul, the hotel's acting head of security, entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel just after midnight. What happened next would unleash unprecedented public grief and forever change the relationship between celebrities, the media, and the public. The Mercedes crashed into a concrete pillar at an estimated 65 Messier-Imahors. The impact was so severe that the vehicle was compressed to nearly half its normal size. Dodi Fayed and Henri Paul died instantly. Diana, barely alive, was extracted from the wreckage by emergency services who arrived within minutes. Despite desperate attempts to save her, the princess succumbed to her injuries at the Pitié-Salpêtrière hospital less than 4 hours later. Her bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, was the sole survivor. Investigations would later reveal that Henri Paul had a blood alcohol level 3 times the French legal limit. The paparazzi's role became a focal point of public outrage. Photographers on motorcycles had been aggressively pursuing the car, and some even took pictures of the victims before emergency services arrived. The world's reaction was unprecedented. In London, mourners created a sea of flowers outside Kensington Palace that grew to be knee-deep in places. An estimated 2.5 billion people, over a third of the world's population, watched her funeral on television. Her brother, Earl Spencer, delivered a scathing eulogy that implicitly criticized both the royal family and the media's role in his sister's death. Diana's death sparked debates about privacy laws, media ethics, and the public's complicity in creating the demand for intrusive celebrity coverage. It also led to tangible changes: tougher anti-paparazzi laws in California, increased scrutiny of tabloid practices, and a brief but noticeable shift in how the media treated public figures. Paul Walker, Fast and Furious star's final ride. There's a haunting symmetry to Paul Walker's death that feels almost scripted, though no Hollywood writer would dare pen such a cruel irony. On November 30th, 2013, the star who had become famous portraying Brian O'Connor, an undercover cop with a passion for street racing in the Fast and Furious franchise, died in a high-performance vehicle traveling at excessive speed. Walker had just attended a charity event for his organization, Reach Out Worldwide, which provided disaster relief. He decided to take a short ride in a Porsche Carrera GT with his friend Roger Rodas, a former race car driver and financial advisor. The red Porsche, often described as a street-legal race car, was notoriously difficult to handle even for experienced drivers. Around 3:30 p.m. on a wide, sweeping curve of Hercules Street in Valencia, California, Rodas lost control. The Porsche struck a concrete lamppost and two trees before erupting into flames. Both men died at the scene, Rodas from multiple traumatic injuries, Walker from the combined effects of trauma and burns. Investigators later determined the vehicle had been traveling between 80 and 93 mph in a 45 mph zone. Though the car had been modified with aftermarket exhaust systems and racing tires, mechanical failure wasn't to blame. The Porsche simply proved too powerful for the conditions. The tragedy occurred during the filming of Furious 7, forcing production to halt and eventually use a combination of CGI and Walker's brothers as stand-ins to complete his scenes. The film ends with a touching tribute to Walker as his character literally drives off into the sunset while Wiz Khalifa's "See You Again" plays, a scene that leaves few fans dry-eyed. Walker's death at 40 represented more than just the loss of a movie star. To many, it highlighted the thin line between the high-octane fantasy world of the Fast and Furious films and the real-world consequences of speed. Though the franchise had always included messages against street racing, Walker's death brought a sobering reality to the film's adrenaline-fueled appeal. Grace Kelly, from Hollywood to Monaco's tragedy, Grace Kelly's life had all the elements of a fairy tale: beauty, talent, fame, and ultimately a prince who swept her away to a European kingdom. But fairy tales are supposed to end with happily ever after, not with a tragic plunge down a mountainside. On September 13, 1982, Princess Grace of Monaco was driving her Rover P6 3500 along the steep, winding roads of Cap Dale from her country home in Rock Aigle to Monaco. Her 17-year-old daughter, Princess Stephanie, was in the passenger seat. Witnesses later reported seeing the car zigzagging erratically before plummeting approximately 120 feet down the mountainside. When rescuers reached the vehicle, they found Stephanie injured but alive. Princess Grace was unconscious, having suffered a brain hemorrhage that doctors believe caused her to lose control of the car. She was rushed to Monaco Hospital, later renamed Princess Grace Hospital, where she died the following day without regaining consciousness. She was just 52 years old. The tragedy was magnified by early misreporting. Initial news stories claimed that Stephanie had been driving, leading to cruel speculation that haunted the young princess for years. Later investigation confirmed that Grace was indeed behind the wheel and had likely suffered a stroke moments before the crash. The car's brakes were found to be in working order, dispelling rumors of mechanical failure. Grace Kelly's journey from Philadelphia high society to Hollywood stardom had been meteoric. Her cool blonde perfection caught Alfred Hitchcock's eye, leading to iconic roles in Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, and her Academy Award-winning performance in The Country Girl. At the height of her fame, she met Prince Rainier III of Monaco at the Cannes Film Festival, and their subsequent marriage in 1956 was dubbed the wedding of the century. Her transformation from actress to princess required her to abandon her film career at just 26, trading Hollywood for royal duties in a principality smaller than New York's Central Park. While she never expressed public regret about her choice, friends revealed she occasionally missed acting. She channeled her artistic sensibilities into charity work, poetry appreciation, and floristry. Ryan Dunn, Jackass stars Reckless and Ryan Dunn, built his career on cheating death. As one of the original members of MTV's Jackass crew, he'd subjected his body to stunts so dangerous and absurd they required disclaimers urging viewers not to attempt them at home. But in the early morning hours of June 20th, 2011, his luck ran out on a Pennsylvania highway, not during a calculated stunt, but in an all-too-common scenario of impaired driving. Hours before the crash, Dunn had been drinking with friends at Barnaby's of America, a bar in Westchester, Pennsylvania. He posted a photo to his Twitter account showing himself and his friends drinking. This digital timestamp would later become evidence in piecing together his final hours. Around 3:30 a.m., Dunn and his friend Zachary Hartwell, a production assistant who had worked on Jackass No. 2, left the bar in Dunn's 2007 Porsche 911 GT3. With Dunn at the wheel, the Porsche sped down Westchester Pike at an estimated 130 miles in a 55 mph zone, a speed so excessive that police reported they couldn't determine if Dunn had attempted to brake before impact. The car jumped a guardrail, struck a tree, and burst into flames in a wooded area off the roadway. The crash was so violent that the vehicle was almost unrecognizable as a Porsche. Both Dunn and Hartwell died instantly from blunt force trauma and thermal injuries. Toxicology reports would later reveal Dunn's blood alcohol concentration was 0.196%, more than twice the legal limit in Pennsylvania. The combination of extreme speed and intoxication created the deadly conditions that even Dunn's famous luck couldn't overcome. The Jackass community was devastated. Johnny Knoxville, the show's creator and Dunn's close friend, wrote, "Today I lost my brother Ryan Dunn. My heart goes out to his family and his beloved Angie. R.I.P. Ryan, I love you, buddy." However, not all reactions were sympathetic. Film critic Roger Ebert controversially tweeted, "Friends don't let jackasses drink and drive," drawing intense criticism from fans but highlighting the preventable nature of the tragedy. Jane Mansfield, Hollywood's blonde bombshell, the crash that killed Jane Mansfield in the early morning hours of June 29, 1967, would not only end the life of one of Hollywood's most provocative sex symbols.
America, Jane Mansfield is dead. Here with ex-husband Mickey Hargitay and their 2 children, she was one of Hollywood's greatest symbols.
But would also change highway safety regulations across America. Mansfield, her lawyer and companion Sam Brody, and 3 of her children were traveling from a nightclub engagement in Biloxi, Mississippi, to New Orleans, where she was scheduled for a television interview the following day. Their 1966 Buick Electra crashed at high speed into the rear of a tractor-trailer that had slowed behind a truck spraying mosquito fogger on Highway 90 in Slidell, Louisiana. The impact was catastrophic. The car underrode the trailer, shearing off the top of the Buick. Mansfield, Brody, and their driver, Ronald B. Harrison, died instantly. Miraculously, the 3 children asleep in the back seat, including 3-year-old Mariska Hargitay, now a famous actress herself, survived with minor injuries. The gruesome nature of the crash spawned one of Hollywood's most persistent urban legends. That Mansfield was decapitated, while police photographs show her blonde hair tangled in the car's windshield, suggesting such an outcome. The official police report states she suffered crushing blunt force trauma to the head and brain, not decapitation. Nevertheless, the horrific nature of her injuries cemented this grim detail in popular culture. Mansfield's death at 34 came as her career was already fading. Once promoted as the working man's Monroe, she had starred in films like The Girl Can't Help It and Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, but had increasingly turned to nightclub performances and publicity stunts to maintain her fame. Her final film, Single Room Furnished, was released posthumously in 1968. Perhaps the most lasting impact of Mansfield's death came through improved highway safety. The underride crash that killed her highlighted a deadly design flaw. Cars could slide directly under the high clearance of truck trailers. By 1998, all semi-trailers were required to be equipped with a dot bar, a steel bar hanging from the back of trailers to prevent cars from underriding them. This safety feature is still commonly known as a Mansfield bar in trucking circles. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, TLC's star extinguished. The winding roads of Honduras's La Ceiba region held no warning of the tragedy about to unfold on April 25, 2002. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the fiery creative force behind the groundbreaking R&B group TLC, was behind the wheel of a rented Mitsubishi Montero Sport. She was on a spiritual retreat, something she did regularly to center herself away from the pressures of fame and her tumultuous personal life. The SUV carried 8 passengers, including her sister Raindrop and members of the R&B group Egypt. Witnesses reported that Lopez was driving at a normal speed when she swerved slightly to avoid a truck that had stopped in the road. In that split second, she lost control on the unpaved shoulder. The vehicle rolled several times before coming to rest in a ditch. While her passengers sustained only minor injuries, Lopes, the only one who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, was thrown from the SUV and died instantly from head trauma.
Grammy Awards-winning singer Lisa Left Eye Lopez of the popular group TLC was killed in a car accident in Honduras.
She was just 30 years old. In a haunting twist, Lopez had been filming a documentary throughout her retreat. The camera was rolling during the fatal crash, capturing her final moments. This footage was later incorporated into the documentary The Last Days of Left Eye, released with her family's blessing in 2007, creating what may be the only celebrity death actually captured on film by the star's own camera. Lopes had been the controversial spark plug in TLC, one of the best-selling female groups of all time, with hits like Waterfalls, No Scrubs, and Unpretty. Her nickname came from her habit of replacing one lens of her glasses with a condom during performances to promote safe sex. Her fiery personality had made headlines when she burned down the mansion of her boyfriend, NFL player Andre Rison, after an argument in 1994. The remaining TLC members, Tion T-Boz Watkins and Rosonda Chili Thomas, were devastated by the loss. They were in the final stages of recording their 4th album, 3D, which was released 7 months after Lopes' death, with her previously recorded vocals included. Rather than replace her, they incorporated archived footage of Lopez in performances and music videos, symbolically keeping the trio intact. Aaliyah, rising star cut short. August 25, 2001, a date that marks not just the loss of a singular talent, but a pivotal, what might have been moment in music history. Aaliyah Dana Horton, known professionally by her first name alone, had just completed filming the music video for her single Rock the Boat in the Bahamas. At 22, she stood at the threshold of unprecedented crossover success, with hit albums, acting roles in Romeo Must Die and the upcoming Queen of the Damned, and a budding relationship with music mogul Damon Dash. Eager to return to the United States, Aaliyah and her entourage decided not to wait for their scheduled departure the following day. Instead, they chartered a twin-engine Cessna 402B at Marsh Harbor Airport on Abaco Island. What followed was a cascade of fatal errors and misjudgments. The aircraft was significantly overloaded. The group brought more luggage than expected, and with 8 passengers plus the pilot, the small plane exceeded its weight capacity by 700 pounds. Witnesses reported seeing the pilot, Luis Morales III, arguing about the excess weight before reluctantly agreeing to take off anyway. Additionally, it was later discovered that Morales had obtained his pilot's license fraudulently and had been convicted of cocaine possession just 12 days prior to the flight. The overloaded Cessna struggled to gain altitude after takeoff. It climbed only to about 200 feet before plummeting back to the ground just 200 feet from the end of the runway. The crash was catastrophic. The plane burst into flames upon impact, killing Aaliyah and 6 others instantly. One passenger initially survived but died en route to the hospital. The autopsy revealed that Aaliyah had suffered severe burns and trauma to the head and abdominal region. Her death certificate listed severe burns and a blow to the head as the cause of death. The investigation concluded that had the plane not been overloaded, the tragedy might have been avoided entirely. The music world was shattered. Timbaland and Missy Elliott, her frequent collaborators, were particularly devastated.
Dearest, sweet Aaliyah, I have trouble accepting the fact that you're gone, so I won't. It'll be like we were for a while without seeing each other.
Aaliyah had pioneered a smooth, futuristic R&B sound that was just beginning to reshape popular music. Her final album, released just a month before her death, had debuted at number 2 on the Billboard charts. Vic Morrow, Twilight Zone Helicopter Tragedy. In the early morning hours of July 23, 1982, what should have been a routine film shoot for Twilight Zone, the movie, became one of Hollywood's most notorious tragedies. A disaster that would forever change safety regulations in the film industry and lead to landmark legal cases against a director and his crew. Vic Morrow, a veteran actor best known for his role in the TV series Combat, was filming a scene for director John Landis's segment of the anthology film. The scene depicted Morrow's character rescuing two Vietnamese children, played by 7-year-old Micah Din Lay and 6-year-old Renee Shin Yi Chen, from a village under attack during the Vietnam War. The sequence involved pyrotechnics, a low-flying helicopter, and artificial fog created by smoke machines. At approximately 2:20 a.m., as cameras rolled at the Indian Dunes film set in Valencia, California, the helicopter pilot became disoriented by the smoke and explosions. He lost control and the aircraft spun out of control, crashing directly onto Morrow and the two children. The main rotor blade decapitated Morrow and one child instantly, while the other child was crushed to death beneath the helicopter's fuselage. The horrific accident happened in full view of the cast and crew. Investigations revealed a cascade of safety violations. The children were being used illegally after hours without proper work permits. The helicopter was flying dangerously low, just 25 feet above ground, while explosives were detonated beneath it. Perhaps most damning recorded conversations revealed that Landis had been warned about the dangers but proceeded anyway, reportedly saying, "I've got to have this shot." The tragedy resulted in a decade of litigation. In an unprecedented move, Landis, the helicopter pilot, and 3 other crew members were charged with involuntary manslaughter, the first time a director faced criminal charges for deaths occurring during filming. After a 9-month trial, all were acquitted, though civil suits brought by the victims' families were settled for undisclosed amounts. The accident fundamentally altered Hollywood's approach to safety. The Directors Guild of America and other industry organizations established new standards for stunts, special effects, and the treatment of child actors. The Screen Actors Guild created a hotline for actors to report unsafe conditions without fear of reprisal. The use of helicopters in filming came under stringent regulation. Jim Clark, racing legend's final lap. Among racing enthusiasts, Jim Clark is spoken of with reverence typically reserved for mythological figures. The Scottish farmer-turned-Formula One champion possessed an almost supernatural ability to control a race car, earning him a reputation as possibly the most naturally gifted driver in motorsport history, which makes the circumstances of his death on April 7, 1968 all the more shocking. Not because it was unexpected in a dangerous sport, but because it seemed impossible for someone of his skill to crash at all. Clark was competing in a relatively minor Formula 2 race at Hockenheim in Germany, far from the glamour of Formula 1, where he had already claimed 2 world championships. Why he chose to race that day remains a subject of debate. Some suggest loyalty to Lotus founder Colin Chapman. Others point to contractual obligations to Firestone tires. Whatever the reason, the decision proved fatal. On the 5th lap, Clark's Lotus 48 veered off the track at the wall curve section and slammed into trees at an estimated 150 mph. He was killed instantly, suffering a broken neck and a fractured skull. No other cars were involved. The most precise driver of his generation, known for his smooth style and rarely making mistakes, had inexplicably lost control. The investigation pointed to a rear tire failure as the likely cause. The high-speed Hockenheim circuit, with its long straights through forest sections, was particularly punishing on tires. Some experts suggested Clark may have run over debris that caused the puncture, while others noted that tire technology of the era was primitive by modern standards. Clark's death had just 32 sent shockwaves through the racing world. 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart, who had considered Clark his mentor, later said, "Jimmy's death was the biggest shock to me. We had become friends as well as rivals, and he had set the standards by which all other drivers were judged."
We're friends, so we were hanging out together. I knew him very well, and Sharon, his then wife, sadly, who died. Helen and I knew them well. He came to some races with me.
The tragedy prompted Stewart to become a tireless campaigner for safety improvements in Formula One. The aftermath of Clark's death saw significant changes to racing safety. Tracks began installing barriers and runoff areas where previously there had been just trees or spectators. Car designs gradually incorporated more driver protection. The culture of racing itself slowly shifted from a fatalistic acceptance of danger to a proactive approach to preventing injuries and deaths.